Hey, welcome to the video. So today I'm going to replace the front strut assemblies on a 2008 Ford Expedition.
This video is sponsored by carparts.com.
I'll have links in the description to where you can go to carparts.com and choose your preferred brand of strut to put on your car, as they sell many different brands. If you're using a quick strut assembly, that is the strut and the spring already assembled for you, do not remove the center nut. These springs are under some compression, even off of the vehicle. If you unbolt this top piece, this assembly can go flying apart, and a heavy one like this can cause some serious damage to people or property. And that's one of the reasons why it's safer to replace the whole strut assembly like this instead of messing around with spring compressors that can fail. So the struts on my vehicle are original. They have 179,000 miles on them. The vehicle is dipping quite a lot when I press the brakes. It's also wobbling around a little too much, and the body roll seems kind of excessive. Those are signs that the shock absorber part of the strut is going bad, or is totally bad. I also have tire tread wear that's indicative of worn struts. It's called cupping. It's so slight on these tires because they're new. I don't know if you can see the unevenness of the tread, how this kind of swoops upwards. You can kind of see it there, but again, it's so slight because these tires are relatively new. You can look up a harsher example online. Even that small amount makes road noise, and it's annoying. And I have it on both front tires, but not the rear ones. I used an array of tools in this job, and I'll have a tool list in the description of this video. So the top three nuts are 15 millimeter. To access them, open up the engine bay, and you're going to find the three nuts on the driver's side and the passenger side. On the driver's side, they are located right in there. I'm using two 10-inch extensions and a swivel and a 15 millimeter socket to reach the nuts, but you only need about 15 inches worth of extensions to reach down there. The brake lines are right here. Do not leverage against them with the extension. And on the passenger side, it's much easier to see where the strut bolts on. Watch out for the AC lines, they are right here. If you ever use a swivel on a drill, never put your hand near the swivel while it's spinning. That can whip around and tear your hand right open.
Next, you'll need to lift both wheels off the ground so there is no tension on the sway bar. Use the designated lift points on the frame of the vehicle and use jack stands to support the vehicle. Make sure you're on level, solid ground. Whether you are replacing only the front or only the rear struts or shocks, it's recommended to replace both the left and right sides at the same time.
So once you get your wheels off, you can come under here. You can see where it connects right here. You got this giant bolt holding it in. The top should be loose also. So the bolt head is 27 millimeter. And the nut is 30 millimeter. You will need an extension to reach that 30 millimeter nut and get a good swing on your ratchet. You can also use a jack stand to provide some support on this extension, so you can step on the ratchet and use your full body weight to crack the nut. Alright, I pulled that out with my hand. You might need a hammer to tap it out, but on the passenger side, you're gonna have to be a little opposite so you can get your leverage from out here. You'll have to unscrew it from the bolt head side. Now for the fun part. You're going to need to remove the brake caliper, separate this ball joint. You're going to need to unbolt the axle. The bolt is under this little cover. You'll need to unbolt the brake line from the knuckle. You'll need to unplug the ABS wire from up in here. I'll show you where it is in a minute. You're going to need to unbolt the sway bar, just that top bolt there. So the plug for the ABS wire is right here. And you need to pull the wire off here and here. You can use a interior trim tool to get these off, or just pliers and pop them off. And an 8mm bolt here. Unclip the hub vacuum line from this bracket and remove this 10mm bolt. And your brake line is separated. Now when you take the caliper off, you can let it rest on something. To remove the caliper, first remove this clip. Then you want to remove the caliper by removing the slide pins. There's one here and one here.
The guide pins are 9mm hex.
Gotta remove these little covers first. And you'll pry up these clips while you pry the caliper off. And you can let the caliper rest on a jack stand or a bucket. Now unbolt the axle by removing this cover, which reveals the little 13mm axle nut. Now the axle is unbolted. Now use an 18mm wrench to unbolt the sway bar nut. If the linkage spins, you're going to need some vice grips to grab onto the end here. Before we separate the upper ball joint, there's one thing I forgot to mention, and that is to remove this hub vacuum line so that it's not strained when you pop this ball joint and this knuckle is hanging down. Now to remove this ball joint, remove the nut with a 21mm wrench. These tend to get real stuck at the end, and I gotta resort to using a big breaker bar. Now get a hammer or a ball joint separator, which you can rent, and pop this open. And when this comes down, you want to make sure you pull this axle out of there a little bit with your hand. You don't really want it resting on the axle. It might pull it apart at these boots, and that wouldn't be good. But now with all this stuff disconnected, the strut will slide out of there. Might need to use a pry bar. Let's get it out of there. There's the old one. Now you can slide in your new one. I got this one from carparts.com. That is who is sponsoring this video by sending me these parts in exchange for the video. Now just put everything back together. It's very easy. The only tricky part is getting these two parts back together. I'll show you the trick in a moment. So to get all this to lift up so you can connect these, you'll get another jack, put it under the control arm and just lift the whole thing up. Might have to align the studs while you lift on the control arm. So since this nut won't go on very far before it seizes, take some vice grips, put them high up on the shaft of the ball joint, clamp them on there, and just tighten this down as far as it'll go before the gap closes on the vice grips. Then enough of this bottom stud will be showing that you can put the vice grips on that. To hold the shaft steady. And that's the hardest part of putting this back together. Everything else, very easy. There's a lot of little bits, so don't forget anything. Make sure you torque all the nuts and bolts to their proper specifications. I'll try to have the proper specifications in the description of the video, but I'm not making any guarantees because these are difficult information to find. Little side note, you can also access these nuts from right down in the wheel well. For those of you working on a lift or whatever, you don't want to keep raising and lowering the vehicle just to get to these nuts. Guess what? You don't have to. You're supposed to torque down that big lower bolt with the weight of the vehicle on the wheel. So I put the vehicle up on ramps so I could access those lower strut bolts and tighten them with weight on the wheels. And just like that, it's over. Hopefully this video helped you out. Don't forget to check out carparts.com for your car parts needs. They have all kinds of different brands for you to choose from. I'll have links in the description. So thank you for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for more videos like this. If you want to be notified when I upload videos, hit the notification bell because YouTube isn't going to let you know otherwise.